Welcome. No, this video is not to introduce a new set of tarot cards called the Fallen Tarot, but I do admit that the title of this video is to entice you to watch and to listen. It's been a somewhat frustrating week with rain and cloud, which affects the ability to charge anything with the solar, but we manage. But what I wanted to talk about to start with is the fallen part of this video, and that's something I physically went through on Friday night, experiencing what you could say is missing time. Now, maybe I was beaten up by the 3 cats in my sleep. Maybe I slipped through some portal and became some space marine, or more likely, the only thing I actually remember of the Friday night, I was listening to something on video, and then I started to not feel very well. And I started going really hot, and I could feel the heat radiating. It's like I'm suddenly sitting in a sauna, and I thought, I'm feeling a bit faint, and I thought, I need to go to the toilet. I don't remember anything else after that, except when I'm then in bed, and the horrific pain I could feel, like all my neck had tensed up. My shoulder blades are bruised, my back feels bruised down to my hips, and I could feel this sort of wetness at the back of my head, and there was definitely blood. So I can only conclude from that I'd fallen onto the tiled floor in the room that I'm in, and then somehow, I have no recollection of it, I've managed to get myself into bed. All I can remember, or the next thing that I can remember, was being in bed and shivering. And I was thinking to myself, this is just shock coming out. I felt the back of my head, and I thought, that's really wet. It was dark by this time. I found the blood on the pillow the next day. I definitely sort of cracked the back of my head. It was painful. What was interesting in that experience, the thought that ran through my head, because I'd got this throbbing pain coming from the back here, was to enact the law of reversal, something that Neville Goddard talks about, and deny that reality. And I thought, this is going to be a challenge to try and overcome that when you've got this throbbing pain. But I thought, we will do this, because I want to get rid of the pain anyway. And so the next day, I suppose it got to about midday, and then suddenly this event seemed to fade in the mind like it was much further back in time than just the previous night. And the throbbing had gone. Interestingly, it seemed to come back a little bit if I focused on it. So I thought, well, we know what to do here. This is just the universe giving me a new challenge. And although it's sitting, or in this case, laying down in the comfort, let's get this right, laying down and feeling the discomfort, using it to then practice or put into practice the way that the mind can help the body overwrite the more negative aspects, like feeling physical pain. So that did work. So I can't say it was entirely 100% successful, because it is very hard in that moment when you have any sort of ache or pain to try and overwrite it with the mind, but it is possible to do, this is what I found from this experience, to such a degree that it takes away the worst of the discomfort. You could say it's a sort of naturally induced, not exactly a suppressant of the pain, but an alleviation of it. So if you find something like that, I hope it doesn't, but if you do find yourself in some sort of situation like that, that may be a way of helping you through the discomfort of the moment, and then creating in the mind something that is transmitted into the body through the subconscious that has a more positive outcome to it. Just the universe giving us tests, I would say. But apart from that, everything's okay from that sense. But financially, in terms of food, I've had a donation today. Thank you very much to the person who sent that. They know who they are. They gave me a wonderful testimony back from a tarot card reading I did, and I said, don't be surprised, because this is what is coming out in the cards, that you are more than likely going to go through some sort of mystical experience, and that is exactly what happened. What I got back was a testimony of it's something that defies the physicality of this reality, in which you'll pick up on something with one of your senses. In this case, it is scent. You pick up on a particular fragrance, and it's a perfect example of how we can use intuition, where we ask ourselves the questions. So in this particular case, it's like, I smell this scent. There's no physical anything that I can attribute it to, but I'm definitely sensing a scent. Notice the two words, scent. Also, it is scent, and you smell a scent. Is there any coincidence that the sound, and regardless of the spell, is pointing to the same thing? Excuse me. But if you experience this sort of thing, where you pick up on a fragrance and think, oh, lavender or whatever it may be, when there is no lavender about, I can only conclude that it is a presence of a soul that you are perhaps connected with, and it's a reassurance to say that you are being looked after. I'm feeling I'm being really tested at the moment. I don't have any actual worry, although the lower conscious mind is racing or wanting to race away with, what are we going to do for money? I need to renew the internet. That's another expense. Whilst I do welcome donations, and it's like, swallow your pride, you're going to have to ask for help here, whether you like it or not. This is another example of sitting in the discomfort, being open and honest to try and change things round. But more than that, I'm rather than have donations, what I would rather have is more people come to me for one-to-one tarot card readings, normally with just 3 cards. Sometimes it can be 5. It just depends on what comes out in the cards. Now, the tarot, as I've said before, is not about predicting the future. We can often be so right in something that we're too close to see what is being presented to us. So the tarot cards actually act as giving a slightly different perspective on the moment. So it's not going to give you anything different than what already is. What it is going to give you is a slightly different perspective on the situation. Of course, this can also be reinforced, as it were, by holding to whatever you visioned, to holding the feeling. This is the key with everything. It's all in the feeling. That is the true sight. Holding to that feeling that everything is going to work out as it will do, and you won't come to any real harm. This it's interesting with this fall. On the Saturday morning, I put on the radio, and I was treated to a sort of overview of the composer Anton Bruckner, where they played excerpt from 9 of his symphonies and the Kyrie from one of the masses, and then a beautiful recording by Günter Wand and the North German Radio Orchestra of this 6th symphony, which is The Philosopher. And I thought, how appropriate in the moment, because this fall has sort of, I've gone very philosophical, I would say, in processing what happened. Why have I had to go through this experience? Was it unconsciously self-generated? Who knows? I'm still it's still fairly fresh, as it were, although at the same time the actual event now seems far distant. It's like a fading memory. So maybe from that, the memory is synchronizing with the lessening of the physical aches and pains. I'm still considering about the whole thing about concussion. Have I got any form of concussion? But at the same time, I don't want to put focus into the worry of the negative, and we're just keep going. Ultimately, I didn't actually come to any harm. It was maybe just a higher self kick up the backside, as it were. This is another thing when we talk about perceptions of what you would call good and evil. Because I've had many testimonies over the years from people who have had some quite horrific things happen. It's as if the universe has a plan for the physical body, and you can try and push against it. But it can result, for one example I can readily think of is somebody who was going to move. On the day of the move, they actually broke their foot. It's as if the universe or your higher self is saying, no, you're not moving, you're required to be in this physical location. Which is also interesting of how you have this interaction between the unseen, non-physical realm and how it plays out in the physical realm. So something like that can seem same as falling onto a tiled floor. It can seem not a pleasant experience, but there is always something of value to be found in these things. Would I want to go through the experience again? Not really. But at the same time, I do appreciate what I've got out of it through taking a sort of philosophical review of things. And it's interesting what I can't remember, and I've no idea of the actual time scale. But that's the way it is. Oh, I'm having to swap hands with the phone because the shoulder's aching a little bit still. Bruised but unharmed, shall we say. But so to alleviate my situation, the key part is also taking active steps. So as a reiteration, I would like to invite you to contact me direct. Details are in the description for a tarot card reading. It's sort of a review of where you are right now and what comes out in the cards. I'm not trained in any way in reading tarot cards. It is what comes through in the art. It did occur to me actually with the title, The Fallen Tarot. That might even make a great set of tarot cards, because I get my information from the images in the tarot cards, not the book meanings. And it is because it is the art spirit working through the artist as the medium to convey something. The artist will put heart and soul into what they create, so it sort of locks in an energy that then will reveal itself to the reader. That, I feel, is how tarot cards actually work. It's the interaction between the artist, from the inspiration that becomes the idea, which then becomes a physical object, as in the actual cards themselves. So imagination creates reality even in that. And then you have the extension of that, in which the reader of the cards will have things come through which you can then relay, which hopefully will help others on their path. What has come out from the tarot cards I've been doing lately is a theme of this sort of, how do I describe it? A sort of holding of the breath, not exactly an anxiety, but a stepping into the unknown, into a very uncertain future. But also with the experience of how things have already gone, to know that there is absolutely nothing to fear. It is just like leveling up in a game in which the challenges would seem to get a little bit harder, but they can still be overcome to get to the end of the game, if we want to put it in like computer terms. But so, yes, so tarot cards are there. I offer mentorship as well. If you're struggling, let's see if we can basically do as the same as the tarot cards. So let's look at your situation. So you're now getting a more direct one-to-one without the cards. In hopefully I can, from what you tell me, I can look at your situation and then find you a positive, find you a way forward. But of course, what I'll actually be doing is just asking you key questions for you to ask yourself. It is the true meaning of intuition, where you become the student and the teacher. So, like with the fall that I've just had, it's reflecting upon what has happened and seeing what it is showing you, what it is revealing to you. Asking yourself questions is like, what is the universe presenting here? What is being reflected back? So you're asking the questions, and from those questions will also come the answers. That is the intuition. Something that you all have inside yourselves. It's like any organ. It is something that, if you don't use it, it will atrophy, rather than getting a trophy. So it's the same as the mind. Stretch the imagination. It's a tool within the physical vehicle that you're in which to use, that can actually guide you, rather than seeing everything from a negative, fearful state of, oh, why is this happening to me, and going into that victim mentality. Because with, for example, the fall, then I've obviously risen again. It does come with a feeling of, to put it in a biblical analogy of, "O Father, why hast thou forsaken me?" when, as is played out in that story, you are not forsaken at all. Everything is all in the hands, and that is reflected in such things as getting sense coming through, little reminders to reassure us that we are not separate from this reality and beyond this reality, but we are playing a part on a world stage which would seem to, what's the best way to describe this? It's almost like a spiritual television set which has an audience that is watching a film that is being played out in this physical reality. I hope that sort of makes sense. So the mentorship and the tarot cards, and there is also Reiki healing I can do as well. I'm asking for just a sort of minimum donation of €5, $5 or £5 sterling via PayPal. Links are in the description. That would certainly help me at the moment. Because it's not just myself, there's 3 cats to consider as well, namely Junus, Damiana, and the little white cat Charis, who's really settled in now. He actually jumped up on my lap and sat on my lap without having to be invited the other day. That was another first. He's getting more and more confident. He's like a little shadow now, so if I go in the kitchen, he'll follow me in the kitchen. So that's beautiful. With a bit of patience, being able to sort of bring him into the cat community, as it were. So today, overcast, but the solar is still working part of the time, enough to charge up things. And must have gratitude, because with the cloud it keeps a little bit of warmth down, and it's not windy, or not particularly windy today, so there's always a silver lining to a cloud. Although you can't always see it, the sun that gives us the warmth and the light is always there. It's sort of, again, a reflection of there is more happening that we don't see with the 5 physical senses used in the external, that we can draw upon within inside ourselves. So that's been the experience, and I would say that many more of you are on the precipice of going through what is called a mystical experience of some kind. If you do, please do let me know in the comments, because they're always fascinating to read. And sometimes it helps. We can have a mystical experience happen and not really know what is being shown to us, why it's happening to us. And by sharing the testimony, another who may have gone through the experience can then turn around and say, "Ah, yes, I went through the same. What I found is," whatever it happens to be, which the sharing is caring, as it were. We can help each other to sort of decode what can seem quite cruel things, like the broken ankle on the day of moving, as an example. Things like that, but things happen for a reason, which is a re-sun, bringing a new light into the world, as it were. Right, I think that's just about covered everything. So, as always, unconditional love to you all, and hopefully, well, I look forward to hearing from you. If you feel inclined to any of the services that I can offer, it will greatly help me. But more so, I feel it will help you in ways that we can't exactly quantify into the material measurements of this reality. So as always, unconditional love to you all.